Hey folks, this is Kalani. Arms Warrior was made available in the Legion Alpha, so we're going to have a look at their abilities, any new animations, how the talents are shaping up, and lastly how our artifact is going to affect how we play. So we've kind of got a few abilities, and this is pretty much all we really have to work with baseline. There's no talents involved here. This number one ability is actually from your artifact, so we'll look at that later. So as the basic abilities go, we've got Slam, Colossus Smash, Mortal Strike, Cleave, I guess, for some situations, Whirlwind for others, Execute for when you're finishing off a mob, and then we've got two cooldowns in the form of Battle Cry and Commanding Shout, which seem to be kind of half-changed, baked-in cooldowns. It's really strange. It's swapping names about, but different effects. So we'll have a look at each in turn. To start with, we've got Colossus Smash. Now, this is, interestingly, our new Mastery. So Mastery increases the damage that Colossus Smash does, as well as the damage increase from Colossus Smash. Now, Rage seems to be pretty much just from auto attacks. None of this generates Rage, it all just spends it, except for Charge. So that's going to be interesting. Hopefully we won't be too Rage starved, but you can reset Colossus Smash by using Mortal Strike or Slam. So we'll have a look at Slam's animation. Pretty standard Slam, really. I think we actually had that added not too long ago. So we've reset Colossus Smash. Very reminiscent of the human special attack. See if we can get another reset. Now bear in mind, all of these animations do seem to be shared across all races, meaning that even if you are a gnome warrior, you should be pretty much jumping up and slashing in the same kind of way. So, Mortal Strike up next. Bear in mind the two charges of Mortal Strike actually come from a talent, so we'll get to that a little later. Very cool Spin Slash. It's going to be interesting to see whether everybody jumps up or not. Seeing a Tauren jump and spin might be rather hilarious. I'm not entirely sure they will. So that could be interesting. But that's your three basic abilities, really. You've got Pummel, which is our standard melee interrupt. Nice shoulder barge animation. And then we've got Whirlwind, which is probably one of my favourite animations added thus far. It's still just so incredibly satisfying to use. I would think any warrior who doesn't really get to use that is going to be incredibly disappointed. It'd be fun to reroll a warrior just for those occasions. Moving on, we have Cleave. It's kind of different. It doesn't auto-target for you. It's a positional attack, so you will need to make sure they are in front of you. You can see if we just turn to the side slightly, it's actually very specific. But a very nice animation to go with it. Note that all of the abilities do seem to have a blue weapon trail. Really cool. I wonder if that's going to change with anything. For example, race, whether we get an option to change that with our artifact when we change the skin. Be a nice little touch of personalization to see if you could have a different weapon trail. But those are your abilities pretty much through and through. We have Execute. I can't show Execute on a training dummy, but I do have some footage of Execute being used. So we can move on to the cooldowns. We've got Battle Cry, which is actually Recklessness, 100% crit for 5 seconds. Only get a few abilities off with that, but anything that did affect Recklessness is pretty much going to affect Battle Cry. So you can expect the same kind of cooldown orientated talents and things like that, but it is only on a minute cooldown, which is pretty cool to see. Now Commanding Shout, once again, seems to be Rallying Cry, just with Commanding Shout's name, and it does the exact same thing. So 15% health to everybody for 10 seconds, and then obviously when it expires the health is lost. But the animation is actually really cool. So you can definitely see that going off in the middle of a raid. And then we have Berserker Rage. You go Berserk, removing and granting immunity to Fear, Sap, and Incapacitate effects for 6 seconds. Once again, a nice new animation. Apart from that, we're just looking at our charge. Once again, you finish off with that shoulder barge. And then we've got Heroic Leap, which really didn't change at all. The area of effect does seem to be a bit larger, but that's about it. And then we have Heroic Throw, which actually uses the model of your artifact, which is an interesting little touch. And you seem to throw it a lot more like a javelin instead of the overhead axe throw that it used to be. Now we do have Defensive Stance, which will reduce the damage you take and the damage you deal by 25%, and it lasts until cancelled. So you can still swap to a Defensive Stance, it's just not a stance as it was before, and then to turn it off you go back to Battle Stance. So that's pretty much it for the abilities, which is kind of worrying, almost. Not necessarily worrying, but you don't really have a lot to work with, which I guess kind of follows on from what Warlords did to Arms Warriors. But that's all our basic abilities, so we can have a look at talents. We've got Shockwave. Right off the bat, we've got our stuns. So Shockwave is pretty much the same as it was, except the cooldown is reduced by 20 seconds if it strikes at least 3 targets. We have Stormbolt, once again, very, very standard to what we have now, not a great deal of change. Sweeping Strikes, Mortal Strike, and Execute hit a second nearby target, so it's not going to be all of your abilities, but you can happily, or try to Mortal Strike a nearby target. There we go. Nice for some cleaving situations. Impending Victory, your slam has a 40% chance to restore 10% of your health. That's probably going to be really ridiculous in PvP. Bounding Stride, Heroic Leap's cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and it also increases your run speed by 70% for 3 seconds. So at least we've still got a lot of mobility. Then we've got Die by the Sword, increases your parry chance by 100% and reduces damage taken by 30% for 8 seconds. It's now a talent, and it does seem to replace Defensive Stance. What's weird about this is that it currently shares an animation with a Demon Hunter ability for reducing damage, so I'm pretty sure that's not going to be final. But that does mean, or I guess that alludes to, getting a new animation for Die by the Sword. Dauntless, your abilities cost 20% less rage. It's quite... I wonder how the numbers are going to work out on that. That could be really powerful or just simply useless. I guess that depends on how much we find ourselves being rage capped. Overpower is back, except it seems to be the embodiment of RNG. It's absolutely ridiculous. Your attacks have a chance, not really specific about what that chance is, but a chance to let you use Overpower. It's got a 60% increased chance to crit, cannot be blocked, dodged, or parried. Also hits for quite a chunk of damage. So you can see, you could either have endless procs of Overpower, or you could have no procs at all, making it probably one of the most RNG based abilities or talents that you could have. There's literally nothing you can do except maybe stack haste to increase the amount of overpowers you could get. So that's going to be fun. You're going to have Arms Warriors at like 99 percentile DPS, and then some Arms Warriors who haven't necessarily done anything wrong, but they just didn't get overpower procs down at 80%, and people will be complaining all over the place, no doubt. So we've got Avatar still. Increases damage by 20% and removes all roots and snares for 20 seconds. Then moving on, we have Second Wind. You gain 6% of your health every 1 second when you haven't taken damage in the last 5 seconds, making that absolutely ridiculous anytime you are able to disengage from an enemy in any form of content. So you could go down to 10% health in a raid and make sure you don't take any damage for 5 seconds, albeit that might be very difficult in some encounters. But if it's doable, you could go straight back to full health without really doing anything. And then in PvP, if you can just stop people attacking you for 5 seconds, you're kind of laughing. That seems really broken. And then to contend with, you could choose for an extra charge on your charge, or Commanding Shout also increases Leech by 20%, which I think is also going to be very competitive, especially in a raid environment. 20% Leech is really powerful. That makes Commanding Shout an insane healing cooldown as long as people are actually able to do damage. We have Fervor of Battle. Cleave and Whirlwind generate 2 rage for each target that they hit, meaning if you're in a really large AoE scenario, Whirlwind can basically pay for itself. I mean, it's 30 rage. If you can hit 15 people, Whirlwind can pay for itself. Okay, 15 is maybe pushing it a little bit, but I'm sure you can Whirlwind quite happily and just drool over that new animation for an extended period of time. We have Rend as well. This is a talent now. Wounds a target, causing a bleed damage over 15 seconds. So once again, numbers are really going to have to be the deciding factor with this one to see if it's worthwhile. But it does seem to come with a new animation. It shares with Mortal Strike, but you've got a nice bloody effect. And then where would we be without Bladestorm, which sadly I actually think Whirlwind looks a lot nicer than Bladestorm these days. Moving down a tier, we have Heroic Strike. This has changed quite a bit as well. It's not really a strike anymore. It's off the global cooldown still, but it increases the damage of your next Mortal Strike, and it stacks up to 3 times. Now, on a typical cooldown of Mortal Strike, you can actually fit 3 of these in, but obviously you're going to be spending a lot more rage. So we can Mortal Strike and Heroic, Heroic, Heroic before Mortal Strike comes back off cooldown. But that's going to eat through your rage ridiculously quickly, so we'll have to see whether that's at all viable. Mortal Combo is the talent which gives Mortal Strike 2 charges. Pretty basic talent, really. Titanic Might increases the duration of Colossus Smash by 200% but halves its effectiveness, so that's a talent now. And I guess, once again, numbers are going to have to come back for that. You could be screwing yourself over RNG-wise, because you can reset Colossus Smash, and then, obviously, its effectiveness is being halved. So, we'll have to see. It's a pretty big numbers game for a lot of these talents. Anger Management. Every 10 rage that you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of Recklessness by 1 second. Now, that's not Recklessness, that's actually Battle Cry. So, 1 minute cooldown. You can see the cooldown is just getting chunked off. So once again, we'll have to see if you can really spend enough rage to use the talent. It's going to be... It's interesting, because the only way to generate your rage is through auto attacks, but a lot of these talents are relying on you not being rage capped to actually work to their full potential, so we'll have to see. Opportunity Strikes is now a talent instead of your mastery. Obviously your mastery has now changed to the Colossus Smash, so your melee abilities have up to 60% chance based on target's missing health to trigger an extra attack that deals a bit of damage. Numbers game. Numbers games are fun. Now Ravager is pretty much the same as it was, except I do believe it has something of a new animation. Last time I checked, it was an axe. That actually looks a little bit like the artifact weapon, which I guess is what they're going for, especially where talents are concerned, or abilities which use your weapon or which are supposed to use your weapon. So that's all of the talents covered. And I'm really happy with the variety that we have here. I'll be excited to see what the PvP talents bring to the game for warriors in PvP, but that's all we can look at for talents right now. But we can poke at the artifact. Now, this is with 0 artifact power, and a lot of these have multiple ranks. So if something says 10%, chances are it'll go to 30%. If something says 1 second, chances are it'll go to 3 seconds, etc, etc. Although Mortal Strike and Execute Crit strikes increasing the duration of Colossal Smash by 3 seconds might be a bit ludicrous. But never mind. The first ability we have is Corrupted Rage. Stomp the ground, causing a ring of corrupted spikes to erupt upwards, dealing a bit of damage and applying the Colossal Smash debuff to all enemies within 8 yards. Now, I don't know if this animation is finished, but it doesn't really seem to... They don't seem to erupt upwards, but that's the animation, which we'll have another look at it. I mean, there isn't even a sound associated with it right now, so I'm guessing that isn't a finished animation, but that's what we do, and it applies Colossal Smash to everything, making that incredibly potent in AoE situations. So we'll just blast through this really quickly. We already looked at this one. Mortal Strike and Execute Crits increase the duration of your Colossal Smash by 1 to 3 seconds, maybe, making crit very valuable, and I guess that makes the talent regarding Colossal Smash and its effectiveness maybe a little less worthwhile. War Veteran, while Battle Cry is active, your abilities cost 0 rage. Kind of ridiculous. Then Touch of Zakajus. Stormcar heals you for 10% of the amount of damage Mortal Strike deals, meaning, by the sound of things, Arms Warriors are going to be very difficult to kill. We've got one of our large abilities, Shattered Defenses. When you apply Colossal Smash to a target, your next Mortal Strike or Execute will have 50% higher crit chance and 50% additional damage. Wow. Death Blow increases the crit strike chance of Execute by 5%, probably 10 and 15% when you get all 3 ranks. A lot of this seems to synergize very well, making you an unstoppable juggernaut. While in defensive stance, Victory Rush is available for use every 5.2 seconds, meaning if you go to defensive stance, not only are you going to take 25% less damage, you also get to Victory Rush healing you every 5 seconds. Does this seem ridiculous to anybody yet? It's going to be unkillable. One against many, Cleave increases the damage of your next Whirlwind by an additional 2% per stack. 2 for 6%? Wow. AoE is going to be pretty ridiculous once again for Arms Warrior, I would say. Increases damage of Slam by 5, 10, 15%. Pretty standard. Unending Rage. Maximum Rage increased by 10. Nice little addition. Thoradin's Might increases damage of Mortal Strike by 5, 10, 15%, I would guess. Once again, nice to have, doesn't really do anything special. Precise Strikes. Colossal Smash reduces the rage cost of your next Mortal Strike or Execute by 15%. I guess we'll be pretty happy with Rage. We won't Rage cap too much when we've got all of these abilities unlocked. When your Heroic Leap lands, you gain 10% increased armor and parry chance for 4 seconds. That'd be really nice for a tank. Heroic Leap to engage. Don't see a great deal of use for that on an Arms Warrior, but never mind. Bit of survivability is always nice, you know, we don't really seem to have a great deal of it so far. Corrupted Blood or Zakajus. When you activate Battle Cry, your sword radiates shadowy energy, causing targets to suffer an additional 50% of all damage dealt over 6 seconds, making Battle Cry a really ridiculous cooldown once again. I mean, your abilities are going to cost no rage, you're going to deal 50% additional damage over 6 seconds, 100% crit, and hopefully you're going to be able to reset it really quickly if you choose the talent to reset it really quickly. When Cleave strikes more than 3 targets, Stormcar releases a burst of void energy, causing a bit of damage to all targets within 8 yards, once again empowering your AoE. So that definitely seems to be cooldown, single target, and then AoE related large talents. But that's everything for the Arms Warrior. Everything adding up when you finally get all of your artifact power, you're going to be pretty ridiculous. But then again, it seems like pretty much everybody is. These artifacts are bringing some really powerful tools to the table, and it's just going to be super fun to see how everything pans out. But that is the Arms Warrior, their abilities, animations, if we had any, talents, and how the artifact is going to play in Arms Warrior come Legion. So, if you have any questions, queries, theories, or would like to see anything specific from the Legion Alpha, please leave it in the comment section below, and I'll try to get back to you. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.